All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next guest is a veteran comedian, a legendary comedian. He's been in the game for a really long time, but he's also was the warm up act for the David Letterman show, and also booked many of the comedians of the David Letterman show for like 17 years. He was there. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the one and only Eddie Brill. Eddie, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Donna. Thank you for the nice intro. And I can see your background there is green, and you have a lot of space, so you're not as cooped up as us city people.
Yeah, I'm out here on Long Island. I'm out in Manorville, so it's just a hop skip from the Hamptons. So got a nice greenery background, but making the best of it. How's it been, the quarantine, the last few months with you over there in the city?
It's like a Twilight Zone episode, and I'm sitting out on my stoop, and instead of 10 billion people walking down my street, there's birds chirping and singing, and the sky is clear, and it's really like I'm on a movie set. It's very, very, very different.
It's it's
Doing the best I can.
Yeah, it's been so crazy, and it seems like since this quarantine started, like every week something happens. Like we get, one week it's the quarantine, then the next week it's, murder hornets, and then it's
Yeah, right.
aliens.
I forgot about them. That's so long ago already.
Yeah, the good old days when all we had to worry about was murder hornets.
Yeah, I remember back then. Lovely times. And now the Hornets are our friends, and we've come together in this blight that's of our existence right now, and also there are other things that are coming, like earthquakes and fires and hurricanes. What it's just, things falling out of the sky, UFOs.
It's hard not to feel like it's the end of the world. I mean, and where do we begin to start to get things to normal? I mean, we don't have a vaccine yet. I think the people are still rioting and protesting, so that's not been resolved. The murder hornets is probably still flying around.
The damn Hornets.
Yeah, so
It'd be great for a college that has some racist title that nowadays they have to get rid of. They're like, like Fort Bragg might have to do, or you do that to one of like the Redskins or whoever who's pissed at today, and then make them the South Carolina Murder Hornets.
exactly.
And it'd be a great team, and it'd be a fighting, fierce battle, and you get your respect back, and you'd be feared.
I think you're onto something there, Eddie. I think that's awesome. Here they are, folks. The Washington Murder Hornets are coming to town.
That's right. Well, they used to have the Washington Bullets,
Oh
so
yeah.
it's kind of the same. The Baltimore, ramshacklers, or might as well just go for it.
Yeah. In the last couple of weeks have been crazy and serious. Like, when you're dealing with these kind of subject matters of police brutality, racism, violence, it's from a comedy standpoint and from a comedian like as veteran as you, is there a humor in any of this yet, or
Yeah, well, there's never humor in the tragedy itself. I mean, 9/11 happened. You don't make fun of 9/11. If you remember Life of Brian, which is one of the greatest films of all time, Monty Python never made fun of Jesus, or he had him actually do this. Everything that Jesus did, the Sermon on the Mount was word for word. It's the idiots around him.
Messiah! I'm not the Messiah. Will you please listen? I am not the Messiah. Do you understand? Honestly!
Only the true Messiah denies his divinity.
What? Well, what sort of chance does that give me? All right, I am the Messiah. He is! He is the Messiah!
And I remember on Letterman, there was Colin Quinn had a joke that a month later, after September 11th, about how the people are idiots who he had, and I am paraphrasing, it was something to the effect of, well, look, if you were down there during that time, I feel for you and want to hear your story, but if you by accident didn't go there, I don't need to know. Well, if I take the 2 train that day, I would have. Have you ever taken the 2 train? No.
right.
Saying that's like saying, look, I'd be a business investment banker if I wasn't running the rides at Coney Island.
Right,
You know,
right.
so you're making fun of the moronic reaction to it. That's the only way. But you never make fun of the tragedy. There's no real, I mean, there are dark ways to do that, and the more savvy dark comics can get away with stuff like that. But there's a respect also for your fellow human, or not.
Right.
There's no rules really. There's no rules.
And it's tough too, like even before all this, with just the state of comedy seemed to be kind of under the PR attack, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, where it's from when you began. You probably started, because I saw you in like the '90s at the Toyota Comedy Festival in Bryant Park back in the day, and
yeah, I used to host all those. That was a sweet gig.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was fantastic. When we're upset, we always go, for crying out loud! What? For crying out loud, kids, you were trying to have fun? For crying out loud, it's like an award you give to a child in nursery school. And here's the award, little Buddy Ryan, for crying out loud. Let's hear it for him. Thank you. Ah! And he wins the award for crying over spilled milk. Splash. Ah! He'll cry at the drop of a hat. Fling poo. Ah! He'll cry his eyes out. Fling bling. Ah! He's good crying, Buddy Ryan. So yeah, I've been at it a long time, and I love it more and more. And the more I do it, the more I love it. And I miss it like crazy.
Yeah, I could imagine when you're like, a lot of the comics I talk to, it's like they're not used to being home for this long a period of time.
Yeah,
and they're going through.
I haven't missed. Oh God, since '84, I haven't had this amount of time. And it you know what it is that the older you get at this, the more things start to unfold. Like all of a sudden, this new flower opens up, and that's one thing about comedy. You get better as you get older. It doesn't mean you can't be great as a young comic, like a young, Joan Rivers down on Bleecker Street, she was hilarious, but, you just get better and better. And so the idea of not being able to go have spring training or,
right.
You have to go out there and just I think some of the very first performances will be gritty, it'll be mess ups or whatever. But if you just have a conversation with the audience, I think you can do pretty well in these scenarios and have a couple of funny things to say.
Yeah, and it's going to be weird, I think, when the clubs do first open up again, too, because I think a lot of comedians are going to be like, all right, do we talk about the elephant in the room, or is it like, COVID and all these things, or being quarantined, or is it going to become hacky, or how's that, what's that going to be like?
It won't be hacky if it's funny, it's... and what's hacky really, some people, I mean, we know that the generalization of hacky means it's a old premise that's been shot to hell. And, but, there are people who are doing Starbucks jokes like Jackie Vernon or Jake Johansson or a million people.
There's a Starbucks right across from the hotel, which is not, I mean, they're right across from everywhere now. They're actually right across from each other, some places where I don't know what's going on there. Are they inside there? Like, we're going to put those jerks out of business. Yeah, someone should tell them they are us, we're them.
Right.
They were all great, and they were, it just matters how good you are. But I think that the honesty, to be able to go out there and talk about it. Right before, I worked the weekend of March 12th or so, had a spots at Dangerfields, and I talked to a friend of mine about getting together and touching each other's faces, which is what I was sending the message to her as a joke, because it was just very sweet kind of thing. And at that time you were told, don't touch your face. So I wrote her a text, hey, let me come over and touch your face. Let's touch each other's faces. And the mistake on the texting, it said, let's touch each other's feces. So that turned into, a joke that I did just before the last weekend of me doing stand-up, when people weren't touching the microphone or shaking hands or whatever, when everyone was starting to freak out a little bit. Middle of March. And so, I got a huge laugh in the 4 shows and it's a true story about what had happened before. So that's part of it.
That's what's great, like you said, about thinking funny or being a comedian. You're always finding, like you said, it's an endless, you got endless material, because it's just with things that's happening to your life and things we're going through now. It's just
And the
going
more
to add.
comfortable you get, the more you can play when you're on stage and goof around and have fun, and also not try to. One of the things, the keys I've learned in my later in life is the not trying to please people, which helps me in a lot of things I do in my life. But on stage, you just go and tell your truth. I mean, you want people to be pleased. It's not like you're trying to piss them off.
Right,
but your
right.
job is not to, create a set so that you could please them. It's doing what means the most to you and be funny, and which is the key, really. And
Right.
then people hopefully laugh because they see that confidence that, look, he doesn't need us, she doesn't need us, she's, it's like when you see someone that you like, and they have a nice backbone, a nice confidence, more attractive than
Right,
someone
right.
who's like, yeah, she's love me. It's,
Well, that's the
unless
thing.
that's what you like. Maybe that's what people like.
What I always liked about comedians such as yourself, who don't, their goal is not to please the crowd, is that the crowd ends up gravitating towards you instead of you going to them. And I think once you achieve that, then you found your voice, essentially, I would say.
Yeah, because your voice has always been there, Dorothy. You've had it the whole time. You just got to get rid of all the stuff that's not you. When you get rid of all of that stuff, you chip away at all the pieces of marble that isn't you. You're left with you, and you bring that vulnerability to the stage.
What's Eddie Brill wearing tonight? Looking sharp, Eddie.
You've been doing this since the 80s and the 80s boom and all that, and you've seen comedy evolve. And then not only that, but you also were a booker and were looking for talent to put on. So I guess the question is, what makes a great comedian? Because there's so many different types. So what do you look for as a booker?
I look for that, I always say Nina Simone, because, when she sings, it's like God's coming out of her, whatever you would call God. It's that spirit that just comes out that you can't deny. It's just, she has it, and that's it. It's the same with comedy. You can't teach someone to be a comedian. You could workshop it. You can go back, be each other's eyes and ears, help each other out. But the only thing you could do is just do it. So when I see that coming out of someone, whether their material is raw and not ready yet, or maybe their performance is not ready yet, when you can see that they have that fire, that's how you can tell. All that other stuff is dressing. It's all a costume of what's going on in here and in here, and this is, so when you see this, you just feel it. I mean, you just like a comedian, we check the rhythm of the room out. We get in there and we're liquid with the rhythm of the room, and
Right.
It's it not always right. I've been fooled, but as long as you're willing to be vulnerable enough to say, look, I can fuck up too,
Right.
which I've done plenty of in my life, but the person I've evolved to is someone I'm very proud of.
How many people here get pissed off when it's cold weather? A couple of you. I get mad right away. It's too goddamn cold. This really sucks. I can't wait for the goddamn summer. You know what I mean? In the summertime, I'm the same guy. It's too goddamn hot. This really sucks. I can't wait for the goddamn winter to come along.
Carlin said, there's a line, and comedians deliberately step over that line. And I think you need that in the culture to evolve. But now with this cancel culture where you can't say things or do certain things or you will lose your career, it's like Roseanne Barr, or, the list goes on and on. But in any case, it feels like there's this gotcha culture where they're out to get you. And for newer comedians, compared to like when you started in the 80s, it's got to be a little bit more nerve-wracking of how to go
I would
about.
think so. So the key is to just really just continue to be true to who you are and be your most authentic self. That's what I tell every comic, to be your true authentic self, and that you could never lose with that. And if someone doesn't like it, like for instance, what's his name with the Academy Awards? My brain is shot today.
I
love him. Kevin Hart.
Oh, Kevin Hart. Oh, yeah.
Not only is the nicest guy on the planet and the most likable guy on the planet, he's very talented person, which is even a bonus on top of the other good stuff. Even if he wasn't talented, but he's really talented at what he does. And he can, light up a stadium with his energy and it's fantastic.
Listen to me. You have no idea the fucking feeling that I have going through my body right now, man. This is a fucking dream come true.
So when he was younger, he had said some homophobic things, and he's evolved. And now he doesn't say homophobic things because he understands the effect of them. So now we should be celebrating Kevin Hart, who went from this guy that has grown up in a fear-based society, one that just scares the shit out of you with advertising and politics and religion. How can you not be, affected by that? So he's evolved. He's gotten out of that small-time thing, and we should be celebrating it instead of canceling his, appearance on the, Academy Awards.
Right. That's a great way to look at it. And I wish more people would, because like you said, everybody makes mistakes. Like, I'm sure if there was social media, even back in the 80s and 90s when I was coming up too, there's a million things that people could pick at. I'm not famous enough for them to care, but the point is that we all make mistakes.
To get a name and someone wanted to knock you down. It's happened to me many times where people came at me and wearing like happy faces, and they, came at me, and you just have to survive these hits that are unworthy, that you're not worthy of getting. It comes from a very insecure place.
I agree, and I think to your point too, we should celebrate that people have evolved. So like, I forget her name, but the lady who makes the cakes with the butter, I forget her name, but she got in trouble for saying the N-word years ago, but has evolved.
Right.
I agree with you. The Kevin Harts of the world.
Poor lady, she gets complete in trouble. She's worldwide news. Her career is over, and you and I can't even remember her name. And I couldn't. I can kind of picture her, but I've never watched her.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, of all the things in the world, sad this, sad that, but these two slumps from New York are sitting around and we can't even remember her name. I don't even remember my name.
Hey to all you kiddies out there at GetCookingPaulaDean.com. I've got a new challenge for y'all this week.
And that says it all, though. That says it all, how they can destroy you off of something you did, 20 years ago or whatever. But I like your idea of, let's celebrate this person, that same person, for having evolved and seeing the light and becoming a better human being.
Yeah.
That's the spin.
When I have jokes where I've admitted that, that something made me uncomfortable, and then I talked about how I learned, that who am I to judge and why is it uncomfortable, and then I become a better person for it. And it's happened a lot in this world. My mother, was the greatest, when she was growing up, her parents were very racist. My grandparents, they didn't know better, and they had hard lives where they were beaten and caged, and hard. They had these. So my mom grew up from these parents, but eventually my mom was became from 0 to 80 in 1 second. She was the belle of the ball, and the kind of diversity that ran through our house, and was beautiful. And she evolved. I mean, she wasn't the same as that lady. We can't remember her name with her pork sausages, but but my mom's name was Lorraine, and Lorraine, he came through, and I was so proud of her. My sister and I were like, oh, look how much you've grown. And she said, yeah, I was an idiot as a kid, but I was fed all this bullshit. We're fed, look, my hair is gray. Well, if I had that, they have commercials that say, hey, if no one's fucking you, put this in.
Right.
Incredible women will fuck you. And then you're like, oh my God, okay, la, la, la. And that's what we do because, they know how to do it.
Yep.
Step away from the big brother.
Exactly. Well, it is crazy times. I'm hoping things start to get better as far as all these things that are happening, and I'm just scared of what next week is going to bring. But who knows? Maybe something better.
I know this is the only time we ever get to hang out. But at least we get to hang out. It's like, what happened to those guys? Well, Don was mowing his lawn, and a bolt of lightning came out of the sky and bounced up and went to Manhattan and knocked the Eddie's block completely down. And but we got this video.
Well, Eddie, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and be on the show. Where could people find you and see some of
my
your
apartment? You can find me in my.
Yeah.
No, I have done a lot of things, which is really fun. I just did a show called Risk, which I've done many times before, and they have a storytelling show, and it's terrific. And I told a really fun old story. I've been doing a bunch of podcasts of my own, and there's one called Organic Grill OG Talk. And I've interviewed Roy Wood Jr. and Colin Quinn and, Judy Gold and in the comedy world, Artie Lang. And then in the, rock and roll world, Baron von Frankenstein, the Misfits. And,
Wow,
and
cool.
then I got Bobby Ojeda of the Mets. And then I got Cindy Hsu, the anchor person of CBS News, or Tish and Snooki, who invented, it's just all of people who are very passionate and compassionate. OG Talk, NYC, it's on YouTube. There's a lot of OG talk. There's a lot of, old guard, old gangsters who are out there. But if you can find us, green logo, go listen. I think you'll enjoy them. I love doing them. It was fun.
It sounds awesome. I'm going to check it out. Eddie, thanks again, man. Like I said, I've been a fan of you pretty much as long as I've been a fan of comedy my whole life. I've known of you, seen you, Toyota. I've seen you. I went to a couple Dave tapings. And it's just great to finally have a chance to talk to you. So
yeah, same. It was really nice. It was really easy, and thanks for doing it earlier because I'm running all over the place and schedules and all that. But we did more time than we thought. It worked out really nice.
Yes, indeed.
It went by in a second.
Well, I appreciate that, and thanks again.
Hey, it's Jeffrey Gurian, and I'm out here at Governor's at the Don Sill show. Put up, stand up, and shut up. No, put up, shut up, and stand up. I keep getting that wrong. Complicated show, very funny. Tune in, watch, great stuff. Don Sill is great, and the people he gets on are really cool, so check it out.